The News Corp boss, Rupert Murdoch, has told MPs he regrets the overly emotional language he used in that secretly taped meeting with Sun journalists in March. In letters to Select Committee chairmen seen by Channel 4 News, he admits he should not have spoken disrespectfully of the police, but says he shares his employees' frustration at the length of the inquiry. His comments follow the broadcast by this programme of extracts of the meeting in which he accused officers of incompetence and branded the investigation a disgrace. Gary Gibbon has this exclusive report.
In March, Rupert Murdoch spoke to several of the journalists from The Sun who'd been arrested in connection with allegations of possible payments to officials. His words were secretly recorded and broadcast earlier this month on Channel 4 News, attacking the conduct of the police investigation.
I mean, it's a disgrace. Here we are 2 years later. The cops are totally incompetent.
Yesterday, Mr Murdoch fired off 2 letters from his New York office to MPs chairing select committees investigating his company's conduct and the police investigations. He apologised for some of his language in the taped conversations. In a letter to the chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee, Keith Vaz, Rupert Murdoch writes, "I am in no position to judge the competence of the investigation and should never have done so." He said he thought the police investigation was more than thorough. Indeed, it has in some respects appeared to be excessive. My personal view is that this has gone on for too long. In a separate letter to another Select Committee chairman, John Whittingdale, Rupert Murdoch writes, "I am sure I made overly emotional comments about the Metropolitan Police Service. But they were driven by a real sense of frustration after 2 years of pre-dawn raids with as many as 14 officers entering journalists' homes in front of terrified families. But I should not have spoken disrespectfully of the police. We all owe a great debt to the Metropolitan Police for their work each day to protect the public." Rupert Murdoch writes that he did not treat any of the alleged wrongdoings by News International staff as nothing, and did not, in the secretly recorded conversations, mean to suggest that any violations of law are tolerable or acceptable. Rupert Murdoch had been asked by the Home Affairs Select Committee for his response to Assistant Commissioner Cressida Dick's comments a few days ago about his company's cooperation with the police investigation.
The relationship has always been a challenging one, and since May of this year, voluntary cooperation has been significantly reduced, and all requests for new material are now supervised by the courts.
Rupert Murdoch writes that his company's trawled 23 million documents, submitted 500,000 documents to the police and spent £65 million on that process. Rupert Murdoch writes it would not be fair to suggest that our company has impeded the police. The opposite is true. It's only requiring court orders for documents now, he writes, because trials are pending and people's rights need to be protected. He then goes on to respond to one of the most controversial excerpts from the secretly recorded conversation.
And one of these sort of high-priced lawyers would say this sort of awful. That situation existed in every newspaper on Fleet Street. Long since ago.
Rupert Murdoch writes that the reports that I knew about, let alone tolerated payments to police, are completely false. The secretly recorded tapes are now in the possession of the police.
This is the most humble day of my life.
I understand privately Rupert Murdoch insists he meant every single word of that. But his words recorded in private 2 years later were focused on what he sees as the long, drawn-out police investigation since then. He tells MPs that he's happy to come to the House of Commons to be questioned again in late July. But the Commons rose today for its summer break, and in early September, trials could be starting. So it's now up to MPs to decide when it's wise to have him back. Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News, Westminster.